A few months ago, we posted a video titled The Top 5 Trail Bikes for Any Budget. And you guys gave us a lot of flack about the cheapest bike we included being the $1,699 Marin Rift Zone 1. And you know what? You were right. Now, we do stand by our decision that the Rift Zone 1 is a great starter full suspension trail bike, but we also see where you're coming from, that $1,700 is a whole lot to spend on a bicycle. So in light of that, we've given ourselves a challenge to build or buy the best possible mountain bike that we can for under $500. And what we ended up with is this, an essentially brand new GT Avalanche comp with quite a story behind it that I'll share shortly. It also has a handful of upgrades we managed to purchase while still staying under the price cap. And so in this video, I'm gonna share not only how we did it, but also take this thing out for its first trail ride and see how it does. Before we get started though, take a quick second to subscribe to the 99 Spokes channel where we upload a new cycling related video every Friday. Now though, let's get on to the bike. Our $500 trail bike started life as an extra large 2024 GT Avalanche comp that was mistakenly sent to a family who actually ordered a BMX bike for their son. And when they reached out to GT about the problem, GT said that they would of course send them the BMX bike, but told them to just hold on to this bike. And while they didn't have a need for the behemoth of a frame, they did strip off some of the components, more specifically the drivetrain and the brakes, to upgrade another bike that they had laying around their house. So what they sold me was a rolling chassis, wheels, tires, fork, bars, stem, and of course the frame for just $100. That's barely over 10% the MSRP of this bike, and keep in mind that this thing is essentially brand new. But of course, I still had plenty of work to do because obviously this wasn't going to get very far without a drivetrain and brakes. My next purchase was a lightly used Shimano Q's U6000 drivetrain for $125. We actually reviewed this 1x10 group set earlier this year and were impressed by its wide range of gears, smooth shifting, and durability. Now, if you're keeping score, that puts us at $225, just under half of our price cap. And the next order of business was brakes. Over the last couple years, I've grown pretty picky with these and noticed my confidence, speed, and honestly even enjoyment drop with decreased braking performance. Thankfully though, some guy was selling a pair of essentially brand new SRAM Code R brakes for just $100. And yes, they're probably more brake than this bike really needs, but I've never been one to complain about too strong of brakes. My next thing to do was purchase some pedals, and I got a basically brand new pair of HTPA03A pedals for just $30 including shipping. At this point, I could have called it a day and had a $355 trail bike that would have been pretty much good to go, but what fun would that be? I still had $145 left to spend, and to be honest, I was pretty torn between two upgrades that a lot of you guys had suggested in the comments on some previous posts we've made teasing this project. And those two things were upgraded tires or a dropper post. And as you can see by looking at this bike, I opted for the dropper. I found this 180mm 1-Up V3 dropper and lever at a consignment outdoor gear store in town, and honestly, for $100, it was too good to pass up. Now, I'm not gonna lie, new tires probably would have eked out a little bit more performance, and even as I've just ridden this bike around in front of my house, I've started to wonder if I've made the wrong decision. But for now, these 2.25-inch WTB Ranger comp tires will have to do, and we'll find out shortly if I end up regretting my decision. So here it is, an essentially brand new 2024 GT Avalanche comp that we've managed to put together for just $455. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited and, if I'm honest, a little nervous to take this out on its first ride. So without further ado, let's get out on the trail. All right, starting out on the climb. Got a mix of stuff going on today. It's actually one of my favorite little loops to do here in Bend, Oregon. We're gonna be riding, for those of you who are familiar with the area, upper and lower whoops. Immediately, one of the first things that you do notice climbing on this bike is these tires. And that's actually in a positive way. They're pretty narrow, 2.25 inches. They have a pretty minimal tread pattern, which means that they roll fast. And of course, that's nice on the climbs. The flip side is that on the descents, I think grip is going to be relatively low, even on these little steeper sections. I can feel the back tire spinning more than I'm used to. But in terms of climbing efficiency, they're doing great. Another thing I've been impressed by, unsurprisingly, is that Q's drivetrain. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we actually did a review of this drivetrain and compared it against Shimano Dior. And just like Shimano claims, it has a very smooth shifting, not quite as fast, but I think for recreational riders, that shouldn't be as important. The other big thing Shimano claims about it is that it's more durable. It's supposed to last 3 times as long. And honestly, if you've got an older bike with a narrow range cassette or even like a double or triple chainring, I think one of the best upgrades you can make is going to a wide range 1x setup. And we got this one used, gently used, for 125 bucks. I think you can get a full set new for just over 200. And again, I think that's a really good investment on an older budget mountain bike. So that's the good, but let's real quick touch on probably the only real drawback I've noticed so far. And that's the fact that the bike just feels, for lack of a better word, kind of loose. I've actually checked a couple times to see if it is, you know, the headset or the quick release axles, or but all that's tight. Honestly, I think it's just play like in the hubs themselves, maybe a little play in the fork, like where the lowers interact with the stanchions. And if you're used to not even like a high-end bike, but even just like a $1,500 hardtail versus, you know, this one that lists for $1,000 that we've managed to build up for less than $500. As weird as that is to say, you notice that difference. Again, on the climbs, it's not a huge deal, but it does, I don't know, make for a bit of a disconcerting feeling thinking about descending on that. So I think that's about all I can cover on the climb. So I'm gonna go ahead and buzz on up the top, save you the agony of the rest of this climb, and meet you up there for the fun stuff on the way back down. All right, well, we made it to our descent. Probably the first thing that's worth talking about is the fork. This is a 100mm coil sprung SR Suntour XCM 30. Now, the fact that it's coil sprung means a couple things. The biggest of which is that you can't really adjust it nearly as much as you can with an air spring. What you can adjust is the preload. Whoa. And I have the preload pretty much maxed out right now. I'm about 210 pounds fully kitted out. So I'm on the heavier end of the spectrum, and so far, grip hasn't been absolutely awful. Oh yeah, I don't know if you can hear that because I have this mic plugged in, but you can definitely hear the front end of the bike just kind of jingling around. A bit disconcerting, but hey, it's keeping me upright. All right, actually, tires are gripping in this loose sand better than I thought, even with that high PSI. Not going nearly as fast as I would, but it's less scary than I thought it'd be. All right, we are dropping in now onto the second part of our trail called Lower Whoops, which is a jump line, which means that we'll get to hear lots of fun sounds coming from this bike, and hopefully no flat tires. All right, not gonna take too much away. Woo! Yeah, not the hobbyist bike, and I think a lot of that comes down to the longer chain stays. Obviously, having a bit better suspension up front would maybe help you preload a little more, but I think a lot of that's a geometry thing. So probably not going to be the bike for folks who want to get into more of like the jumpy side of trail riding. But again, it's an XC bike, so that's what you should expect. I haven't mentioned it yet, but one thing I'm very impressed by, I think, are these brakes. Definitely riding this quite a bit slower than I usually would, and using the brakes quite a bit more. They are doing the trick, so thankful for that. Woo! Oh, wow. All right, little drop. Yeah, look at the GT Avalanche go. Another thing I'm noticing as you're like pedaling out of berms and such is that this cassette has a lot of play in it. I don't know what exactly its engagement is, but you notice that when you're trying to accelerate out of the corner. I guess that's all the reason for it to just not brake. That's scary. Oh, yes. Oh. All right, not the most stylish thing ever, but we cleared them, I think. Oh, it's tiring. This bike, it just like wears on you a little bit more. All right, coming down to the end of the trail. There's a couple more features left. There's a couple gaps down here that I'm gonna avoid. But, you know, for the most part, I've been pretty impressed. Oh, manual? Nope. Oh, janky. Oh, speaking of. So we'll get down to the bottom, recap, and kind of conclude on what you can expect from a $500 mountain bike. All right, we are at the bottom, and I am thankful to be in one piece and still have every bit of skin left on my body. And all joking aside, I hope I never sounded too condescending about the bike in the video. Of course, when you get a $500 bike, you shouldn't expect to have the performance of a $2,000 bike. And that was the case here. But that being said, the $500 GT Avalanche did surprise me with how good it was in some areas. Now, if you are wanting to get in the sport and really progress and grow, then I think this bike is going to hold you back, and you would be better off getting a $1,500 hardtail like a Trek Roscoe 6 or a Marin San Quentin 2. But if you just want to experiment and try the sport out, then yeah, you know what? You can find yourself a $500 bike. Now, if you are still watching this video, you're a true fan, and we want to hear from you. We've thought about some other ideas we could do here. Should we turn this bike into a $1,000 bike and put another $500 into it? Maybe we should try to do a cross-country race on it and see if you can race on a $500 bike. If you have any ideas for what we should do with this GT Avalanche, then go ahead and leave those down there in the comments. While you're there, if you haven't done so already, take a quick second to go ahead and like this video, as well as subscribe to the 99 Spokes channel. And as always, remember that bikes are for everyone. Have fun out there.